So I often get asked, why don't I change my snare drum or snare head? Why am I sitting on a djembe instead of a throne? Well, here's the thing. It's not my kit. I do own a kit. It's a Gretsch stop sign badge kit I paid $3,500 for back in the day. I think it sounds amazing. And in times past, when I had a studio big enough to leave it set up, I used to do jazz lessons on it. And when I moved to the new studio, I used to share a Yamaha Maple Custom. Maybe you recognize it from such lessons as the Odd Meter lesson with Chris Paproda. Then the musician who owned that kit moved out of the practice space, and the landlord asked me if I wanted to buy a new kit for the space. Knowing what had happened to the other shared kits I'd seen, I was like, I'm good. All of which led to the installation of the current early 90s Tama Rockstar kit I refer to as Ugly Delicious, because it doesn't sound half bad. But another thing happened a few weeks ago. A friend of the channel got me a Yamaha recording device called the EAD. And when I did a review of it, mostly to thank the guy whose name is Michael for his gift, the review got a better response than I expected. Hence, gear reviews. So I thought it would be fun today to review my kit versus the house Tama on a number of parameters, and speak in the process about the difference between jazz mechanics and non-jazz mechanics. Stay tuned. So, first point of comparison, out-of-the-box sound. My personal Gretsch is outfitted and tuned for small group jazz, which means coated heads and relatively high tuning. Which lends itself to a certain type of vocabulary. The toms are very articulate. So it sounds great to play diddle rudiments on them. The kick drum, unmuffled, has a pitch to it too. The drums are very ringy too. They sound great at medium volumes, but they can tend to wash out if you try to play them too loud. With the Gretschs, it's all about playing off the drums. And that classical rudimental stuff you studied, like Wilcoxon or Delacluse, will sound great on them. And they sound expensive. Now, by the magic of editing, the house Tama is not a kit that's going to sing like a choir of angels. In fact, it doesn't really sound good unless you play with a heavier touch. With the Gretschs, it's all about playing off the drums. With the crap Tamas, they're not going to sound good like that. As such, the physicality and muscle memory of playing the two kits is very different. On the Tama, you're generating some force to get a depth of sound out of the drum. So you're quite often playing into them. I should mention that although I've got the EAD, I'm not using it for this video because I wanted to capture the native sound of the drums. Okay, that's the out-of-the-box comparison. But what happens if we road test both kits for different gig or recording situations? Let's first talk about jazz. And for this comparison, I'm intentionally using the same cymbal setup for both kits, so that we're only really comparing the drums. When we play jazz on this Gretsch, two things stand out. If you're playing a swing beat, the high pitch and ringiness of the kick drum gives it a 1960s sound. Like those Miles clips with Tony Williams. Or any of numerous Elvin recordings. You can play off the drum for a lighter, more tonal sound. Or you can plant the beater and get a muffled percussive sound. And the nature of the drum makes it easy to differentiate. The other thing you notice playing jazz is the toms sing out tonally. And you can play tom rim shots and they sound amazing. But what if we play jazz on the tama? The tamas don't actually sound terrible playing jazz. The heavier kick might be appropriate for big band or fusion. And in a non-traditional context, such as this Ben Wendell cover, the lower kick sounds great. Besides, in New York, there's long been a tradition of making whatever house kit you're lucky enough to find sound great. I'm going to try to find a clip of Marcus Gilmore playing the house kit at the now defunct Local 269. If you're not seeing that clip, it's because I couldn't find it. But trust me, I've watched Marcus, Jochen Ruckert, Rudy Royston, Colin Stranahan, and Dana Hawkins all make that kit sound amazing. But what you don't get with the tama is that beautiful melodic sound on the toms. So I wouldn't play the rack tom very much at all playing swing unless I wanted to hit some cold-blooded Steve Gadd fills a la John Riley playing with the Vanguard Orchestra. John knows how to make big drums sound amazing, by the way. Anyway, don't expect to get too much tonal control out of the kick drum either. You're either getting a ring, or if you're not careful about it, a buzz. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, but now let's fish out of water. Let's play some Backbeat Funk. For Backbeat Funk, the tama kit sounds passable. Especially since everything is triggers and compression these days. With this POS piccolo snare, plus my Zildjian FX cymbals, and the big kick, you can get a perfectly passable sound. But what if we want to play funk on the Gretsch kit? When it's tuned for bop, getting a decent funk beat out of the Gretsch is more of a challenge. For starters, while the tama sounds better at higher volumes, the Gretsch starts to get washy and live. Plus, take it from me from experience, in the situations when you'd be playing funk in real life on this kit, you'd probably be trying to play quieter, either because the gig called for it, or because your bandmates are mostly not plugged in. So we have to simulate the hard playing of a big kit, but at a lower volume level. Which can be a good touch exercise. The other thing that I haven't heard anybody talk about is the height of the rims on the Gretsch drums. They're like twice as high as the piccolo snare rim or the tama rims, which means it's tremendously unforgiving when it comes to rim shots. Still, with the FX hats, it's not the worst funk kit. And bear in mind, this is all with the bop tuning of these Gretschs. As Nate Wood demonstrated, you can tune them down and muffle them in various ways, and they'll sound great in other genres. So, shall we declare a winner? If I could only own one of these kits, which would it be? Well, here's the thing. We shouldn't have to choose. For starters, in New York, house kits are more likely to be those old crappy rock kits. So it's useful to be able to get a great sound out of those. And that means if you can only own one, maybe it's better to own the Gretsch. Since that way, if you need a specialty bop sound, you can always get one, your own. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say if you can, you should practice on both. One larger kit, tuned for backbeat music, with deep toms and clear heads. And one smaller, tuned for bop, with shallow toms and coated heads. Because even though one drum kit favors more physicality playing through the drums, and the other favors more touch playing off of them, you'll develop extremes of your dynamics cross-training that you never would on just one kit. And what if I had to pay for my own kit? Who knows? I've liked the Yamahas I've played. I've also dug DWs and Pearls. Luckily, that's a decision I don't need to make until I have my own studio. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this lesson or any of the previous lessons in the past few weeks, you feel like maybe you're ready to go a little deeper, maybe you're ready to study with me, I recommend my courses. The coaching course, the practice course, and the soon to debut solo course. All of which are like 3 to 6 months of studying with me for around the price of 1 to 2 lessons. But we only open them up a couple times a year, and we only open them up to people on the mailing list. So, mailing list bribe, if you'd like to join the list and be the first to know the next time we're opening one of those courses, just click the link below the player. And I'm gonna bribe you to do it. If you click the link below the player and enter your email address in on the next page, I'll send you 3 video mini courses, which will make your playing better in the next 3 weeks than it's gotten in the past 6 months. Dudes, really enjoyed this one. Always enjoy doing these. See you soon. Vlogger. Ja, das Vloggen spielen. I do say that every lesson. That's because it occurs to me independently. Sam Harris is right about free will. Yamaha recording device. Really becoming a perfectionist these days. It's too much fucking Instagram. And that's one to grow on.